What's up, Ben? I'm sure you've seen the news recently. The Fed was talking about the 50-year mortgage, and they've pivoted now to the portable mortgage. Wanted to just call you and A, clarify what that is, and then B, as a lender who's been in the game for quite a while, I wanted to hear what your thoughts are. Good, bad, what's it look like?
Sure. So the portable mortgage is a lot like an assumable mortgage, which used to be more common back in the day where we didn't have a whole lot of home appreciation. And the reason for that is when you take over an assumable mortgage, you can only take over what is currently owed. So let's say, for example, family buys a house a couple of years ago for 300. Now they owe 250 on the mortgage, but the house is worth 350. For you to take over that mortgage, you would need to come up with that difference of $100,000. And that's what's really hard to achieve with a lot of our first time buyers is saving up that large amount.
That makes sense. So previously, the mortgage and rate was possible to stick with the house. And now what they're suggesting is the portable mortgage where the rate and loan move with the individual homeowner.
Right. And so it's a proposal which I really don't think is going to happen. It's a good topic of conversation. It makes for good talk, but the problem is a mortgage is based on the collateral and the property itself, right? That's why you're able to get such attractive terms of lower rates, et cetera, because if somebody defaults on the mortgage, the investor takes their house. So to transfer it to another property, there's just a ton of risk in that because are you going to a property that's worth more, worth less? Is it a different type of property with a condo? You're more or less making it essentially a version of a personal loan, and just no investor is going to go for that. So I don't see it happening, but it's opening up a lot of conversation.
Yeah, so it sounds like Ben, it makes sense in theory, but when you actually look at the implementation, I know you've described before interactions, federal, state law, the banks that are involved, the investors that are involved. There's a lot of moving pieces that all have to be in lockstep on this, and it could create almost like a logistical or bureaucratic, too much red tape to effectively get through.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why I just don't see it happening is because all those parties would have to agree on it. So even if it were to happen in theory, you're probably talking about a decade of litigation and things going on. But what I will say, and we had the announcement of the potential 50-year mortgage last week. And so I had a couple of calls on that, and we went through and broke down the math, and just on a hypothetical scenario, we ran it at 300,000 as a loan amount, and the difference between a 50-year and a 30-year was only $200 a month, or a little bit less than that. And so there's different ways. I mean, the Fed's head is in the right place, trying to make monthly payments more palatable for consumers, but there's different ways to do that. There's rate buy downs, there's assistance programs. In the last 2 weeks, I've helped 5 families. Three of those were able to not bring any money to closing. Granted, they had some earnest money, but we used state leverage programs to where when they got to closing, they weren't making a payment. And, it's November. They don't have a payment in December. Their first payment's not going to be due until January. So you stack that on with the fact that two of those families also, they're going to have monthly payments of less than $2,000. That's the average rent in the metro right now. So now you're in a spot permanently. You don't have to worry about moving expenses again. You don't have to worry about what the rent's going to be next year. So it's provided a lot more stability, and those scenarios are more achievable than people think. So what I would say is, when it comes to your scenario, connect with a professional and somebody that's been doing it for a while and knows the different programs that are out there, and we'll kind of lay the menu out for you, right? And whenever the time's right for you and your family, that way, with our educational approach, you'll feel more empowered to make the right choice at the right time.
That's super helpful, Ben. And if I understand you, it sounds like, I mean, 50-year versus 30-year, you're saving $200 a month in payment, but you have an additional 20 years that you're on the hook. So you're effectively going to be paying a lot more interest on that. We're talking tens, potentially hundreds of $1,000s more.
Yeah.
So the 50-year mortgage, this portable mortgage, uh, may not have a ton of practical use, but what is happening is we're starting to see people start to have this conversation about affordability. And there are actually some really good tactics, both from a negotiation standpoint, on a realtor side, and from the lender side, with a ton of different options and programs that when people just start unpacking the numbers, they realize there are some affordable options there that have been there the whole time. They just, the urban myth of 20% down, great credit, job you've held for 5 years, I mean, just isn't true anymore. There are a lot of ways to qualify for good programs, really creative ways to start building equity now rather than waiting for some silver bullet or for some program that you may not qualify for 5, 10 years.
Right, exactly. And with myself and with Citywide, we have a variety of investors. So, we help a lot of those families that are told no by the bigger banks that have more red tape and things like that. We're not a cookie cutter lender. So we can help with a lot of those scenarios. And the good thing about having those conversations is we can help those families that think they were going to put 20% down. They might have thought that 5 years ago, and here we are, and that house that they were looking at for 200,000, well, now it's going for 350, and they still don't have that much, right?
Yeah.
But when we can lay that out, and in the meantime, they've paid 20, 25 grand a year to the landlord, that's going out the window. So, it might be $100, $200 more than what you're paying in rent right now, but let's get ahead of that. Let's have the conversation. We're coming up on tax season. For a lot of our families of first-time home buyers, they might get a tax return that'll be the single biggest paycheck that they'll get throughout the year, right? So let's talk about putting that money to work for you. Let's get ahead of when your lease expiration is going to be, and time everything right.
Yeah, the 2 points you really hit on are uh, make sure you have connections and make sure you're seeking knowledge and getting answers. And I think the single biggest advantage someone can have is knowing the right people. One bank tells you no, talk to someone else. Find, I don't think my clients should be experts in the housing market. That's my job. And I'm here to help guide them and direct them. And part of that is that I reach out to people like you who can give them really clear, expert um, guidance when it comes to what type of loan they should be applying for, what makes the most sense for them with their overall financial picture. And there are some really cool options out there. And these announcements recently have really opened that conversation for people.
Exactly. Yep. It's like old schoolhouse rock. Knowledge is power. So get out there and educate yourself.
Great
Speak with the
spot
right
to end it.
professionals.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben. Yeah, you take care.
All right.
Talk
Thanks a
later.
lot, Nick.
Bye
Have a
bye.
good day.